Hi there. Happy International Pipe Smoking Day. Coffee Word and Leaf. It's Friday. Enjoying my Eric Nording freehand. It's a smooth freehand. I heard that Eric Nording was gonna stop making pipes. I don't know, probably, I guess it was October, November. So I decided, what the hell, I've had this on my list for a while, so I found it on eBay. It was a good eBay find. I got it for about $100. It's in really good condition. It was an estate pipe, but good pipe. I'm just so in love with the Eric Nording shapes and these classic Danish styles. The grain on this pipe is just fantastic. I do love this pipe. The bowl is huge. I got a big pinch of tobacco in my tray, and I was like, oh, this is probably gonna be like about, half a bowl. I might not smoke a whole bowl, I never know, so I just wanted to pack a half. No, once I had this all stuffed in, it's probably closer to a quarter of a bowl, I would say. But that's all right. I had my small pipe earlier today for International Pipe Smoking Day. Earlier I was smoking my Pocket Dublin from Morgan Bones. Tonight I am smoking my Eric Nording, and I'm smoking Sleepy Hollow. From Watch City. I heard a lot of good stuff about this. I will say that it's been sitting in my cellar, obviously, since October. Just because I'm not much of an aromatic guy, but for some reason it was just kind of calling my name tonight. I'm not sure why. I just got back from a nice Lenten dinner with my wife and my daughter. We went to a really good local barbecue restaurant, and they had a shrimp basket, so decided to get that. This is my first year really practicing Lent, so it was a nice time for reflection. Anyway, tonight on this International Pipe Smoking Day, I hope you guys are smoking something good. Enjoying the comforts of your home. Maybe reading a good book. Or spending some good time with your friends. I guess that's one of the joys of pipe smoking. It's a celebration of all of those things. I do love smoking alone in my study here. But I also love, going out to the Chicago Pipe Collectors Club during their monthly meetings and smoking in a room full of like 30 other people. This is really something that can be enjoyed and celebrated in any setting. As long as you're sharing it with good people with good intentions. So tonight I wanted to give a video response to Papa Bear. He's having a giveaway, and he asked that people share what we collect. So I wanted to talk about some of the books that I collect. Of course. Did you really think you were going to get anything else out of me? What else do I collect? I collect pipes. I collect tobacco. I collect Blu-rays. I could have talked about that. I do have a sizable horror Blu-ray collection. But other than that, I guess my biggest collection is probably my book collection here in my study. Just kind of looking at my shelves right now. So I wanted to show you just a fair representation of some of my bigger sub collections, like in my books. Some of my oldest books are actually Dungeons and Dragons novels. Specifically the Dragonlance series and the Drizzt Forgotten Realms series. Talked about Dragonlance here a little bit on my channel before, a while ago. But Dragonlance and the Forgotten Realms, if for those who don't know, they are these shared worlds in the lore of Dungeons and Dragons. So from the 80s up until just now, recently, they've been publishing books in these shared worlds, and a lot of different authors have written about a lot of different characters in these worlds. These worlds are owned by Wizards of the Coast, so they're the official lore of Dungeons and Dragons, the role-playing game, and they include some of my favorite characters in all of the books that I've ever read. So I'll just kind of show you a few. This is the Crystal Shard. This is one of the oldest books in my collection, actually. When I was in grade school, I met my best friend, and he showed me Dungeons and Dragons, and I've loved it ever since. And I remember he came to school one day with a box full of these old tattered paperbacks with this amazing artwork, and I just fell in love instantly. I was a reader back then too, so I borrowed them and gave most of them back, but this one, The Crystal Shard by R.A. Salvatore, has been on my shelf ever since. Don't tell my friend. But this is the first book in a series by R.A. Salvatore called The Legend of Drizzt, and it's about a dark elf ranger from the underground world of Menzoberranzan. He comes from a race of people who are inherently evil, but he escapes up into the world of the Forgotten Realms and becomes a hero. So the Drizzt character has been around, like I said, I want to say since the late 80s. Yeah, 1988. So, Drizzt Do'Urden, he's one of my favorite characters. Check it out. If you know Dungeons & Dragons, you probably know Drizzt. He's a dark elf ranger who carries 2 scimitars, very stealthy, but he also has a little bit of barbarian in him. He can rage. He has lavender eyes that rage with an inner fire when he gets into these into this state during battle. He has a pet panther that's magical named Gwenwyver. Oh, just delightful books. Love them so much. Another part of my Dungeons and Dragons fantasy collection. Talked about this a little bit on my channel before. This is Dragonlance. These are some of my old Dragonlance books. We have the Chronicles, Dragonlance Chronicles. This was the first trilogy. And oh, how I love these books. And this box set I found for a steal. This is actually worth a little bit of money. I found it in like a secondhand shop. I don't think the guy knew what he had. I got it for a song too. But yeah, first book in the series, Dragons of Autumn Twilight. Again, one of my favorite books. This is a book about a party of adventurers who split up a long time ago and come back later in life to meet at the Inn of the Last Home and go on an adventure to save the world from the evil dragon army. There's Tanis and Sturm and Lorana on the front. These characters will ever remain in my heart and mind. Put this back here. Make sure it's nice and safe. Another part of my fantasy collection, this is by the same author of the Drizzt series. This is the Cleric Quintet. This is a collected edition of 5 books. This is about a priest of this magnificent library church who goes on an adventure with these 2 brothers who are dwarves, Ivan and Pickle Boulder Shoulder. Pickle Boulder Shoulder is not your average dwarf. He actually attunes more with nature than, and he's not really the stereotypical dwarven fighter in the mines. He actually gets attuned with nature and becomes a druid of sorts. He actually shows up in the Drizzt books later on. It's a shared universe with the Drizzt books, so he meets Drizzt and all of Drizzt's friends and becomes a major character and, well, a side character, I guess, in some of the later books. But he has a green beard. His name's Pickle. He's actually a quite powerful druid. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's okay. We're talking a lot of Dungeons and Dragons talk now, so I hope you're okay with that. A lot of pipe smokers usually are, because we come from Tolkien, and Tolkien's what inspired Dungeons and Dragons and all of these books, so. If I can light my match. So next on the list, this could actually be my biggest sub-collection in my library of books here at home. But I have a Stephen King collection, and I have, I would say, most of his books, and most of them are in hardcover. I try to collect the older editions just because I'm in love with 80s fantasy and horror artwork. So this is one of the older books in my collection. I have Pet Sematary. Oh, this is such a dismal, dreary, horrific novel. Stephen King actually talks about how he wrote this book and he actually had to put it in his away, and it almost didn't get published because it was just too dark. He was like, I don't think I can show this to anybody, so he put it away. And I think later on down the road, his wife found it and convinced him to publish it, and he did, and thank God he did, because it's such a good story, such a good novel. It's about a family who kind of moved to the countryside and eventually find out that they've moved onto this land that has been cursed by Native American tribes, and there's this pet cemetery, and it's kind of, the pet cemetery is the entranceway into this much older cemetery where if you're buried there, you come back to life, but you're not the same. Sometimes dead is better. If you've ever seen the movie Pet Sematary, you know what I'm talking about. Next, one of Stephen King's greatest novels, Salem's Lot. Classic vampire story. This is so good. Such a great small town vampire story. No one does it better than Stephen King when it comes to like quiet small town and just the horror of what can come to just a small, quiet community. And how all of the characters are all doing their own thing in this town, and the horror comes and affects all of them. And so you see what's happening throughout the entire town with all the different people. He just does excellent character development, excellent plot. Salem's Lot is one of his best, and it's one of the best vampire novels out there. And finally, my favorite Stephen King book of all time, It. I'm sure you know the story of It, Pennywise the Clown. It's about a group of young kids in the 50s, I believe, and they live in the town of Derry, and something is stirring under the ground of Derry. Nothing's quite right in the town, and there is an evil, malevolent force. That appears to all of the kids in town as their worst fear. Such a great novel. It's long, it's epic. It ties into a lot of other Stephen King's novels. It's just a great story of boyhood and growing up and friendship and the absolutely terrible prejudice that can manifest into such horrific things. That's what it's really about. But Stephen King is the master. That is certain. Anyway, I hope this was interesting. I thought I'd go ahead and just end with a little bit of a reading from The Crystal Shard. I won't make it long, but I just wanted to read the introduction of Drizzt Stewart and one of my favorite characters. Let's see. I guess Drizzt's introduction isn't for a while. I kind of forgot about that. So I'll start here. Bruenor, who is Drizzt's best friend, he's a dwarf, very proud dwarf. Bruenor walked up the rocky slope with measured steps, his boots finding the same footholds he always used when he ascended to the high point of the southern end of the Dwarven Valley. To the people of 10 Towns, who often saw the dwarf standing meditatively on the perch, this high column of stones in the rocky ridge that lined the valley had come to be known as Bruenor's Climb. Just below the dwarf to the west were the lights of Tourmaline, and beyond them the dark waters of Mare Dwalden, spotted occasionally by the running lights of a fishing boat whose resolute crew stubbornly refused to come ashore until they had landed in Knucklehead. The dwarf was well above the tundra floor, and the lowest in the countless stars that sparked the night. The celestial dome seemed polished by the chill breeze that had blown since sunset, and Bruenor felt as though he had escaped the bonds of earth. The dwarf turned around to face Drizzt Do'Urden, though he realized that the drow would be invisible against the black backdrop of Kelvin's cairn. From this vantage point, the mountain was the only silhouette that broke the featureless line of the northern horizon. It had been so named because it resembled a mound of purposely piled boulders. Barbarian legend claimed that it was truly served as a grave. Drizzt noted the glazed look in his friend's eyes. "You seek the sights that only your memory can see," he said, while aware of the dwarf's obsession with his ancient homeland. "A sight I'll see again," Bruenor insisted. "We'll get there, elf. We do not even know the way." "Roads can be found," said Bruenor, "but not until ye look for them." "Some day, my friend," Drizzt humored. In the few years that he and Bruenor had been friends, the dwarf had constantly badgered Drizzt about accompanying him on his adventure to find Mithril Hall. Drizzt thought the idea foolish, for no one that he had ever spoken with had even a clue as to the location of the ancient dwarven home, and Bruenor could only remember the disjointed images of the silvery halls. Still, the drow was sensitive to his friend's deepest desires. He always answered Bruenor's pleas with the promise of someday. "We have more urgent business at the moment," Drizzt reminded Bruenor. Earlier that day in a meeting in the dwarven halls, the drow had detailed the findings to the dwarves. "You're sure they'll be coming then?" Bruenor asked now. "Their charge will shake the stones of Kelvin's cairn," Drizzt replied as he left the darkness of the mountain silhouette and joined his friend. "And if 10 towns does not stand against them, the people are doomed." It's such a great little scene where Drizzt and his best friend Bruenor are looking over the tundra wasteland of Icewind Dale, their home, and they know a barbarian horde is coming. And all they can do is wait and be ready for it. But yeah, that's just a little bit of a part of the beginning of the Crystal Shard. It is a wonderful book. It's a great book to start with if you're ever interested in some of the Dungeons & Dragons lore, especially in the Forgotten Realms. This is the way to do it. So anyway, thanks for stopping by my study on this quiet Lenten International Pipe Smoking Day. Hope you all are enjoying something nice in the warmth of your home or someone else's. And I hope you all are remembering why we do this. For quiet, for peace, for calm, and for friendship. Thanks for stopping by, friends.